Active Learning Strategies in Teaching and Learning, Bite-Size CPD, Richmond upon Thames College, Michael Behan. Today's learning objectives are as such. Number 1, to define active learning. Number 2, to state why active learning is considered effective learning. And number 3, to suggest examples of active learning strategies that can be used by all teachers within the classroom. Now, the first learning objective was to define active learning. It is as such. Active learning involves the move from a teacher-centered classroom to a more learner-centered classroom, and has students taking responsibility for their learning inside as well as outside of the classroom. Now, the second learning objective was to focus on why active learning is seen as effective learning. We firstly have to make sure that we take into consideration that we are trying to raise the educational attainment of each and every student within our classrooms. But firstly, active learning strategies are there to develop the self-confidence of all your learners. Alongside this resilience, we have to make sure that students are self-aware how their interactions with others within the classroom and outside of the classroom does have repercussions. Thirdly, active learning strategies help develop pride and achievement as students take much more responsibility for the creation of their own work. And fourthly, and probably the most important, is to develop a lifelong learning and commitment to education. It is also at this point that we should note that the Common Inspection Framework produced by Ofsted in September 2015 has a section focusing on personal development, behaviour and welfare of students, where the following 4 skills are all referenced in terms of evidence that they will be looking for during the observation schedule. So, to look at our third learning objective, examples of active learning strategies which can be used within the classroom. The 3 that I'll be focusing on today is number 1, that of a physical debate, number 2, that of the graffiti board, and number 3, that of Pictionary. So firstly, strategy number 1 is that of the physical debate. So to give a brief introduction, firstly, move all the tables out of the middle of the classroom to free up the space for the students to gather in the middle as a small group. If the classroom is small, split the class into 2 halves. A line can also be drawn down the centre of the classroom if a scale is needed and therefore necessary as part of the debate structure. On either side of the classroom, clear visible signs need to be placed with the statements agree and disagree, or maybe yes and no, dependent on the topic of debate. The teacher is then responsible for asking the class a series of questions, which they then answer by walking to the correct sign, either yes or no, agree or disagree. It is when students have made their decision as to where they will stand that the teacher is able to ask a series of questions. Open questions are best in order to develop and therefore elicit more in-depth responses from the students. It is also the case that students may remain in the middle as they are undecided on what side of the debate they will lie on, but then this also enables the teacher to question the student in order to elicit a response. This is a useful strategy to use in applying active learning within your classroom. Firstly, it is a fun and engaging way for all students to be able to participate in what can often be daunting debates where personal opinion has to be conveyed to a whole class structure. Number two, it enables all students being required to explain why they chose their position and therefore being able to justify their opinion by providing evidence in order to support it. And thirdly, it is also a useful task in being able to develop higher order evaluative skills. The second active learning strategy is that of the graffiti board. The graffiti board consists of a series of A3 sheets stuck together, or equally valuable is that of a whiteboard. The goal of the graffiti board is that students are encouraged to record their thoughts, feelings, ideas and suggestions around any given particular topic. In addition to writing on the actual graffiti board itself, post-its would be equally useful in allowing each and every student from your class in order to contribute to a particular topic. Of note, firstly, this should be anonymous, so as to develop the students' confidence in being able to convey their thoughts and opinions in such a public forum. Once self-awareness and self-resilience and confidence has been developed from your learners, you can ask for them to be personalised, therefore allowing you as a teacher instant feedback as to what an individual student's views are and therefore level of learning on a particular topic. This can be done by using a particular coloured pen or by simply getting the student to write their name on the relevant post-it as they put it up. The benefits of using the graffiti board are as such. It is very useful as both a starter as well as a plenary in being able to summarise the key ideas, thoughts and opinions of your class on any given topic. It can also be used in a much more long-term application rather than just a short-term application, in that with topics or modules that take place over a series of lessons, contributions can be added as you go along in order to check understanding and therefore to give the students a better understanding of the overall module and therefore overall topic and how each and every lesson has therefore contributed to that. Thirdly, it allows for a KWL perspective. When the teacher asks for the graffiti board to be added to, what can be drawn out is what students think that they know about a particular topic, what they would also want to know about a particular topic, and also what they have learned about a particular topic. So when the graffiti board is being completed, more targeted checks and therefore assessment for learning can be secured by the teacher in an easy and informative way. The graffiti board is also very useful in developing interpretation and application skills, as the students are able to see the bigger picture in terms of knowledge and understanding and therefore the learning that takes place in a lesson, but also begin to see the links between information in terms of starting to highlight similarities but also differences of vital importance for most A-level subjects. And thirdly, the last active learning strategy is that of Pictionary. The rules of the game are as such. The students are split into two teams. It is then both teams write down as many key terms, famous persons, books, countries, sports as they can think of. The topics are obviously related to the subject that is being taught. So countries might relate to geography and books therefore might relate to English. It is when writing as many key terms as possible, you are looking at 20 to 30 being the optimum number. Once this is completed and a time limit has been given to the students, one student is chosen from each team. This can be a voluntary action or this could be a more targeted action. This student is then given a pen and is required to draw without using any words the key terms, famous persons, books, countries or sports that have been listed by the other team. The individual student is therefore made to, on the whiteboard, draw the Pictionary version of that key term. During this time, it is best to give them a maximum of 2 to 4 minutes. It is also during this time that the scribes team need to guess what is being drawn. The essence of the game is the more correct answers, therefore the more correct points, therefore the team being or resulting with the higher score wins the game of Pictionary. The benefits of Pictionary as an active learning strategy is number one, it is definitely a fun, engaging teaching and learning strategy which once again encourages participation from all your learners due to the teamwork, therefore group work nature of the activity. It is also of great use when revising factual knowledge. So as a tool it provides a useful memory aid for students, as the visual diagrams can often be an easier way for students to remember key knowledge, but can also be quite a useful way for teachers when revising factual knowledge to reference, as for some peculiar reason the diagrams and therefore Pictionaries created have a much better chance of sticking with your students and therefore you being able to reference them at a much later date. And thirdly, it requires students to be creative. This is a higher order learning skill, and some of the Pictionaries that are created by their students are extremely impressive and show a great deal of creativity in their application. But remember, with all active learning strategies, do provide reflection time. This can be done during as well as at the end of any lesson, where the students can analyse and evaluate their learning, therefore focusing on what actually were the steps in terms of the learning by breaking it down into its component parts, but then also evaluating the strengths and the weaknesses of the learning strategies from a much more personal opinion and therefore assessment, as all learning is different depending on the individual in terms of how efficient it can be. And lastly, active learning strategies aim to develop the following 6 key skills, building on remembering and understanding, and working towards evaluation and creation. Thank you for listening to this Active Learning CPD, and good luck in applying some of the strategies within your teaching and learning. Goodbye.